the hip lingo
The
cool
You'll
list.
hippies,
you'll be
hippity
you'll
hop.
be there before I am.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a good point. The future isn't set in stone on this one.
I just take the slow bus, the slowest possible bus I can.
No,
Just
it's
take
not
me
the
to the top.
slowest. It's just the most painful.
Yes, it is rather arduous.
You pick the 2 foot washboard road is what you pick.
Yeah, yeah. Just do you like pain? Yes. Okay, what if we could double that pain? Okay.
That is it? Only double?
That's just double. Let's just double that pain.
What if we could make you work while also enjoying that
Oh,
pain?
let's just triple the pain. Let's go
Sign
ahead.
me up. Let's go.
I'm ready to rock and roll. This will be a piece of cake. No big deal. Easy.
What if we make you do all that with absolutely no title or recognition until you finish it all?
Crap. All right, let's go. Let's do it.
No.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's fun. It's been a blast. I think if I would have known more, I wouldn't have done it. But I'm glad I did it. So it's good that I was ignorant. I think that's, you know, good. By the way, Chris, your digs, gorgeous. I mean
Mm,
that flat.
my Tribeca loft in the
Yeah.
middle of a town of 600 people.
Yes, it's I'm just imagining it's just bolted to the top of the water tower, like
Pay no attention to the portals that you can usually see in
yeah,
the gap of the headset.
your shoulders randomly like grow attachments every once in a
See,
while to
I
the
just
background.
like why even pretend? Like just
Because you have a nice room. I'm halfway tucked inside a closet, so
I don't know about nice, but it is
It is
something.
nice. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, probably 10 more windows than I have. That's for sure.
Hey, so when I was in grad school, so we had there was like hallway, and then inside the hallway there was a room, and the room had no lights, no windows, just had these fluorescent lights,
I say fluorescent migraine inducing lights.
and then
Oh,
inside of that there were cubicles that we resided in.
pain
And
lights. Oh my goodness.
oh,
Ugh.
it was awful. I
So
was so happy when like they had this thing, and it was like there was like a bench and then a little spot for a desk, and by the bench there was a window. And it was the like I had way less space, but I had one window. And
but you
I
had a window.
100% took it. I like,
Uh-huh.
yep, I will
Uh-huh.
take that
Yes, I
office.
hear first world problems. That's what I hear.
Then
Granite
again,
floor problems.
it almost sounds like an episode of Backrooms or something, like you're living in this weird fluorescent lit
Oh,
cubicle
it was so bad.
hell.
And it was before laptops were like I
Uh-huh.
was very much on the laptop train, and still I am. But like,
No
oh
way.
yeah, some of us can take our work. Like I could go
Gosh,
sit outside
some
and
of us like
work
doing that kind of
if it
stuff.
wasn't 80 degrees out right now.
Yes.
But
So everything was desktops back then. Then you just had like a PC sitting there.
yeah, I'm mostly. That
Was it
it was sort of the verge of like things were moving.
changing?
Yeah.
That was Windows XP days, right?
I
Or
was
what were
gonna
you
guess
using?
95.
XP and then 7.
XP 7. Okay,
Yeah.
7 actually.
7 was
Honestly,
actually pretty stable. Wasn't quite as annoying as Vista for
Vista
most
was
people.
I
Yeah.
had Vista and I lost my drivers every time I turned my computer off and turned it back on again. Like that was the most miserable
It seems
experience.
like an uncommon problem. I
It
never
was
had that, but
ridiculous. So, well, and okay. So my story with computers is I got a hand me down with Windows 95 on it. That's what I started on. And I got really interested in it because I had a little thing like a little sound recorder, and so I could stick a microphone in like one of those cheap little
You had a
web microphone
microphone? No
things.
way.
Yeah. And I could stick it in my acoustic guitar and I could play guitar and I could hit the sound recorder, right? And so I was like, oh man, I'm a recording engineer now. I can make albums. So I had that Windows 95 and I got used to Windows 95, but then I wanted to do more than just like one track at a time. I was like, this is lame. I don't like this. And I had a buddy of mine. He's like, well, I could build you a Windows XP computer. And this is when XP was like shiny, brand new. And then I ended up buying like an interface, which back then interfaces were all SCSI. Everything was SCSI. It didn't matter what you were doing. You had a special PCI card. You had a ginormous SCSI port with like 58 pins or something. And, you had to like, it was big old chonky thing. So I bought that and then we moved to XP and I quickly found that any Microsoft product, whenever it's initially released, is generally the most buggy and annoying thing ever. And because my experience with Windows XP in those early days was I learned to absolutely hate everything about Windows XP, period. And so, fast forward a few years later, Windows XP, they get all their bugs out of it, right? And then they're migrating to Windows Vista, which quickly transitioned into Windows 7. And they was trying to push this migration to Vista, and I was really not interested in going to Vista. But Windows has a tendency to push the issue pretty heavy.
Yeah, you think?
So I went to Vista. My naive little self went to Vista because when I went to audio engineering school, we used Mac.
I was gonna say, I figured you'd be buried in
Mac,
Apple.
Yeah, Mac was the only way that you talk in audio engineering. Like, and even to this day, and that's a total sidetrack, but like there's a reason, and the reason is the DSP, the digital signal processing that Pro Tools offered, and Pro Tools DSP was way more compatible with the Mac platform, whereas the PC platform wasn't really compatible. They didn't play nice. But you get Cool Edit Pro, which was built for PC, which then eventually turned into Adobe Audition, and that was meant for like native stuff. But obviously back then your RAM was what, 512 or something megs or something. It was horrible.
I remember megabytes.
It was bad. Anyway, so then I moved up to Vista, and Vista would just eat my lunch every single time I tried to use it. So then Windows 7 came out, and against my better judgment, I immediately jumped on 7, and 7 was better, much, much, much better. Then by the end of Windows 7 support, I was sad to see it go. I was not happy for Windows 10. So I held off on 10 for 2-3 years, something like that, which actually cost me a job. I actually was very, 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 very proficient in Windows 7. I went in for a job interview. It was like an IT support job or something. And they asked me all the questions on Windows 10, not on Windows 7. And I was like, well, good. Even though Windows 10 had only been out for, I don't know, maybe 6 months to a year, but that was what all the questions were about. So totally failed that exam.
I don't see why you care so much about what kind of spyware you install on your computer.
I know. I just take the most recent spyware. It's all the same, right? But yeah, no, I still think in terms of like multimedia, Mac is still pretty much hands down the best.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go into any recording studio or any graphic design studio or any film studio, it's all going to be Mac, like straight up. Now, again, is that just because we've always done it this way thing?
Yeah, cultural conditioning versus
right. Like Pro Tools, for instance, like Reaper is just as good, if not better in some ways, than Pro Tools. But all the main studios still use Pro Tools. Like it's still just a Pro Tools thing. And it's because there's an entire like culture and infrastructure that sort of surrounds Pro Tools where you can get credentials and compare yourself, like, are you a level 3 Pro Tools operator? And if you are a level 3 Pro Tools operator, whoa. Even
gamifying the audio industry.
Yeah, even though you could do the same thing in Reaper just as easy, it's like, whatever, who cares? I just appreciate whoever built Reaper because they were like, hey, Pro Tools isn't that complicated. Why don't we just make our own? And then they did, and it was great. And you can buy it for $60 perpetual license. Instead of $2,500 a month with a one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Pro Tools is ridiculous, but it is what it is.
Month?
If you're operating a full studio, it can be upwards of $2,500 a month. It kind of depends on how much you have. So 3 192 IOs, and if you have 3 192 IOs in multiple rooms, you can get real expensive on your Pro Tools. So, and again, the other thing that drove me nuts about Pro Tools is they track limit you. So me being creative, I'm like, I want to add another track with another synthesizer, and then another track, and then another track, and then another track. Well, Pro Tools is like, no, you can't do that. You only have 24 tracks. And I'm like,
you have a keyboard right there.
But like,
that doesn't make sense.
What is stopping me? There's nothing stopping me from adding tracks.
Well, but
so that's when
software features, right? Like,
yeah, yep. Because they were just sort of like, we know better than you. You don't need more than 24. Because if you had a tape machine, you wouldn't have 24. Well, if I had a tape machine, I'd have a tape machine, and I'd be using that, not you.
There you go.
It's sort of like Ace Ventura, at the beginning, and he's like, if I were you, Ace, I'd turn back, and then Ace goes, well, if I were you, then you'd be me, and I'd use your body to get to the top. It's sort of like, I mean, if I had a 24-track tape machine, I wouldn't be using Pro Tools at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then you get something called Cool Edit, and they allow you to have 128 tracks, but it only works on native hardware. And so, If you have a bad audio card and bad RAM, it's really bad. But
If
you
you
know,
have bad things, it's bad.
if you have
Yeah, it's bad things are bad.
it's all garbage in, garbage out. If you have bad junk, it's bad.
It's not good junk.
If you're cooking your hot dogs with garbage, it tends to stink. That's, I mean, the hot dogs aren't very good.
Garbage doesn't really hold the heat as well as a cast iron pan either.
No. Well, and garbage
Definitely
just,
not.
it gives you a little bit too much of the black sooty smoke,
It's just cancer. It's not that big a deal.
Well, smoke is just unburnt wood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
turn the temperature
unburnt-
up and there wouldn't be as much smoke. Yeah, incomplete
Exactly.
combustion.
There you
Or it's
go.
unburnt
Well,
plastic
chemistry
bags.
physics lecture in here in
Yeah.
Doc Talk.
Well, they make stoves that have catalytic
Mhm.
converters in them,
Yeah,
and so
You
it
can
will,
harvest.
it'll burn, and then you get a secondary burn.
I was gonna say. Well, there's wood stoves where people burn wood just to get specifically wood gas and then burn the wood gas for some other purpose.
So it's almost like an afterburner on an airplane.
Well, you
You-
can
you
burn
Literally,
wood
yes.
gas. You can burn wood
Yeah.
gas in a generator. So
Yeah,
you can use it. To
Really?
generate. Yeah.
So is wood gas is a gas though, isn't it? It's
yeah.
not-
It looks like smoke or steam depending on the temperature
vapor.
that it's burned at. But yeah, you can hold a match up to it as it's
Well,
coming out, and
And what they'll
it'll
do is they'll take that
combust.
and they'll feed it through, like if you run it through different filters. Like some of them is like
Right.
water, right? So the water will take the soot, so it's not
the
black,
particulates.
Yeah.
out, and then so you basically end up just with gas, right? So it's like
So with wood gas, can you cool it and make it can condensate and turn it to liquid?
I don't know about wood gas, but you
or
like
if you
you know
cool
what
it, it
liquid
just turns
smoke
back into
is?
wood.
what
Liquid wood
actually what
gas.
liquid smoke is. It is
Yeah.
condensed smoke
yeah.
into a
It is just
liquid.
literally, yeah.
It's literally liquid smoke, like the
Is
real
liquid-
stuff anyway.
Is liquid wood gas a thing? Like, is that?
I don't know.
I would doubt the temperature for which you would need to do that. Like
Yeah,
you'd have to either cool it or change the pressure.
this is revenge for your intro programming class where you made us do real life latent heat of condensation, latent heat of vaporization.
Hey, that was
Oh,
that was my.
That's a
favorite.
practical assignment. I don't know why people had such a problem with that.
Okay,
I
here's
was
the thing.
very on board with practical things like that.
Making liquid wood gas is easy. I have the solution right here. You just run it through a Fischer-Tropsch reactor to generate a longer chain of hydrocarbons. That's it. That's a piece of cake.
Should
There we
just
go.
trip to Home Depot then. We're good.
Yeah. Just a quick trip to Home Depot. Grab yourself a nice Fischer-Tropsch reactor on clearance. You'll be good to go. It'll be
I think they only sell those at NIST or something like
yeah,
that.
probably. You have to build your own, right? I just thought it would be funny if you cooled the wood gas back down if it just turns back into wood.
Liquid wood.
That's wood without all the impurities, right?
Yeah. What's funny, and I mean, wood essentially is just built out of air. So I mean,
Yeah, it's
Wow,
actually quite
carbon.
amazing that like if you look at a tree,
Yeah.
it's just air.
it's air. Yeah.
Mm.
Like there's some water, which is in
Yeah, a little
air,
bit. Yeah.
but like it's mostly air. Like it
Mhm.
turned air into something hard, and then you can burn it, and it turns back into air.
Yep. CO2, strip the C, keep the C, leave the O2. It's also really nice for us humans because we like the O2 stuff.
Yeah, we
and
do like that.
Stuff's
It is
really
required.
nice. We do. It is marginally required for us to continue existing.
It's like 17% required, something like that. Isn't that like 17%? Whole bunch of nitrogen, some
Yeah.
CO2.
Mostly nitrogen, whole bunch
Yep.
of nitrogen. Yeah. It does. What's funny about that whole knowing that trees are made of air, I was like 4 years ago old when I figured that out,
Oh yeah, me
big
too.
brain Adam. Like I'd never really, I always thought, oh, they pull it up from the soil. They pull it up from the soil. And I think when it really got to me is you can grow things hydroponically, which is just like in water, and
Mhm.
you can grow trees hydroponically. And I'm like, wait, what? Okay, so if it's just in water, where in the world is it getting its mass?
Well, and if it was taking it out of the dirt, there would be a hole in the dirt.
There would
That's
be
right.
a hole that it eats.
But
Right,
there's
exactly.
no hole in the dirt.
There is no hole. And that's when I finally, big brain Adam, gonna be a PhD someday. Figured out, oh, it's the air. They're made of air. Okay, cool.
Trees
Or-
breathe.
Or you watch Guardians of the Galaxy and We Are All Groot, right? Like
Yes, right.
because Groot is
What's
made
funny-
out of the air, and
And we're all,
we're
yeah.
all breathing the air.
It's just funny because we build our houses out of the air. And we breathe the air. So we technically breathe what our houses are built of. So, I mean, there we go.
Well, there's
That's
I mean,
scary
the
because some
rock
houses are made of
and-
like 30% black mold.
Oh,
You need more
dear.
sunlight. Matt's got that taken care of. He's got all the sunlight there. That's good.
This is a sunroom.
Plus,
It's
plus you have your stove back there.
It's very
How-
terrible at keeping heat, but
Yeah. So with the stove, what's the hottest you got it in there? You ever burn yourself out like 92,
Oh yeah, probably 90, 91.
90? Whew.
Well, that's why I moved my office upstairs in the house, because even 80 degrees in the winter, when your body is
Cold,
used
yeah.
to being colder, is
Yeah.
too hot.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I've
Yeah.
gotten the back of it red hot,
Oh, jeez.
which is not what I want.
Not good.
Recommended.
No, I was gonna say you don't want to be getting to that point.
But so that's at like 900 degrees. Metal becomes incandescent.
Is that because that's just iron, isn't it? Is that what that
Yeah.
is?
Cast iron, yeah, typically.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's cast. I think it's
Rot
it's-
or what? I don't know.
It's
that.
like pig iron, probably. It's just
yeah, that'd be 977 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's up there.
you know what? I think you can go further. Those are rookie.
Oh, I know
numbers.
I can go further.
Yeah.
I just stopped. I shut, so it's got two vents. I'd shut the vents down so that it would go down. But what would happen is that like the logs would get stuck against the back, and then the air is coming up against it, and so it will sort of superheat that spot in the back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because the airflow.
so
Yeah.
what I probably should do is actually just get some what are they called? They're bricks made for stove.
Oh yeah, fire brick.
Fire brick.
Yeah. Yep.
I
yep.
should put some fire brick just in the back.
On the back. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good
There's a
choice.
specific name for them, but I can't remember. It's basically it's ceramic that has more air holes in it.
Yeah.
Or you
'Cause
could
that-
try to
that
find
stuff
yourself.
you can heat up a lot, and the bottom
Yes.
is lined with fire brick. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The bottom would have to be because otherwise it'll melt out the bottom. Just fall out the bottom of the thing.
yeah, it's hot.
I know
it
for
also-
me-
it builds up. Like the bottom isn't. I don't think going to be the hottest anyway. I don't think because your heat is
Apparently-
rising. So
Less
the
air. Well,
back,
unless
yeah.
it's not getting the air to the bottom
Airflow.
directly.
Yeah. Apparently right now it's the back. The back is the hottest.
yep.
Of course, you never really know. I mean, internally it might have been even more than that, but
Oh, I know internally it was more.
yeah. Yeah.
Than Otherwise,
I still
that
think-
wouldn't have been that hot.
That would have been that. I still think that wood heat is like the best heat. And I don't know why there's a difference. There's different types of heat, gas heat and radiator heat using hot water. And then there's wood heat and blah, blah, blah. And it's probably just in my brain, but a wood heat, it just feels really, really good. Like, I don't know why. And maybe there is maybe it resonates
Well,
at
you
a
get a
different
lot
frequency
more.
or something.
So like when you're in here, right? Like you will
Hmm.
get that feel of it's warm. Like
Yes.
the radiant heat is quite high. Like your face is warm
Yeah.
versus your back is not.
Right.
It's a lot different than your typical. I mean, it's so much hotter than
Right.
anything that's going to be coming out of your.
Heater ducts
Yeah.
or anything.
It'll also depend on like height of the ceiling and whether you have a ceiling fan and conductive currents and all that fun stuff. Convective currents.
Yeah. Well, I'll take the fan here and I'll put it on the backside so that it pulls
Blow it
up.
off.
Yeah,
air
it does.
from the
Yeah,
floor.
we have a ceiling fan in the room that's got our wood stove, and yeah, it makes a world of difference when that thing's off and when it's on.
You should put a heat sink on it. Treat it like a computer and then run a fan across it, blow the heat off. Actually, you should put a heat sink on it, encase that in ductwork, put a fan on it, and then take the ductwork and aim it into the house and blow some of that heat into
Hey,
the house.
I've already thought like if I put beside this a radiator, right, and
Mm-hmm.
ran a line into the house,
Mm-hmm.
like I could directly pump heat directly
could.
out of it into the
Yep.
house.
You can. You could also run a coil
Yeah.
to your water heater and get free water heating.
Yeah,
That would actually be really nice. You get some good hot water off of that. The question is how hot are
well,
you looking?
You got to be careful because copper melts at a much lower
Yeah.
temperature than
you
steel.
also don't want to get your water above 212 degrees because
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. You
steam.
Water heater becomes a bomb. Yes.
Yeah, well, and it burns you as soon as you touch it. I always like the idea of the heat radiation and like how can you move it and deal with it and all that kind of stuff. You
Oh,
could put a
the-
liquid cooler on your stove.
Well,
which is
if
what
I
we were
was
just talking
smart,
about.
I would also invest in a geothermal. Like,
Yeah.
that would 100% like reduce some of my needs. But like
Yeah.
this, I get. Like I actually
So-
got a pickup load of wood today. I just went to the dump and
How do the commercial
it up.
geothermal or the consumer grade geothermal things work? Do they just go
Like
down
how-
into the ground?
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
Well, it depends. Luckily enough, I have a uncle, the one who I lived with when I was in Kearney, who's
Uh-huh.
a big commercial HVAC guy.
Ooh.
It depends on like your location, your land. A lot of people are doing, like I said, I don't know the proper term, but it's a more horizontal
yeah.
installment. So it takes
Okay.
up a much bigger area. It's only like 6 to 10 feet underground, so it's like just below the frost line.
Right.
And so it's just spread out over a real wide area like that. But probably the more traditional is they drill it, not like a lot like a well. You drill
Yeah, go
down
deep.
with
Yeah.
your tubing, and then you cement it in place with a grout. And then it's like a glycol mix that runs in the
Right.
pipes. So it's so deep in the ground that it's just like you're never going to get enough heat to fully heat your
Mhm.
home. You're never going to get enough cooling to fully cool your home, but it's like 55, 57 degrees. It'll keep it like that
Perpetually.
average. So then you just bump it
Yeah.
up or bump it down to,
Right. So in
Well,
the
that-
extreme times, it can really help take the edge
Yeah.
off.
Well, yeah,
When
that's
you
where
can-
your heat pump right sort of fails.
Yeah.
In typical heat pumps fail at like below 20 degrees.
yeah.
Right.
Like your
right.
So this is like when you do
efficiency.
both in concert, when you do heat pump plus geothermal, you got a really solid setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't learn until a few years ago like how a heat pump works. Like I was
It's
How
like,
does-
AC in reverse, literally AC in
Well,
reverse.
and how that all works, right? Is so when
Yeah.
when you compress a gas and turn it
It
into
co-
a liquid, it
Heats.
loses-
right?
And then bleed the heat. You got to bleed that heat off first. So
Yeah.
that's still compressed. It's still a liquid, but you've gotten rid of heat. So now it can absorb a whole ton of
so then
energy.
then
to
at the other
evaporate.
end, right? It decompresses and then it
Yep.
Which causes the cooling.
Yep.
like
Yeah.
I knew
Spray
that
can of CO2.
Yeah.
When that pressure goes down, the temperature drops in it.
Or vapor cones on airplanes. Like it's
Yeah.
the same concept when the air gets super heated, super compressed, and then it decompresses immediately on the backside of the wing. That's when you
Mhm.
start seeing the vapor clouds that they actually create, especially when they're going over the speed of sound.
It's all has to do with that changing state requires or dumps extra energy.
Yep.
yeah, it's just moving, right? You're moving it from
It's
Yeah, you're
conservation of
moving,
energy. Yeah. Conservation of
Heat
energy.
pump. We're pumping the heat somewhere else. It's not.
They-
It's
they
not
now make heat pump dryers.
Really?
interesting.
Does it work?
Yeah. But
Apparently.
so the biggest difference is that like when you get it out, right, it will feel more moist than you think it should be for clothes that are dry
Okay.
Hmm.
because the air has more water in it, right? So
Yeah.
they have more water
Yes.
in them
Right.
because it's not like pulling out the water, out externally. It's more inside. But if I get when I get a new dryer, I want to get one of those because I think that will be awesome.
It's interesting. Absolutely.
Well, you don't have to heat. You're just using the heat in your house, right? To
Yep.
again, right, making one place hotter
Mhm.
than the other.
Yeah, it is cool how, just using a compressor will allow you to get heat. Like it's just really interesting.
Move.
mean,
You move
Yeah.
heat. You're not making it. You move it.
Move. Yeah, moving.
Well, yeah. In that case, it does kind of. Yeah, I mean, it is still it's friction that's generating when you compress it. It gets hot.
Yeah, 'cause
That
you have
hot,
density.
yeah,
Right.
that hot above ambient is then used to heat the dryer.
Well, ultimately, essentially, what a heat pump does is it takes the energy that you use to run your compressor, and it converts it to heat. That's
Well,
essentially
no,
what's
you're
happening.
pulling.
Well,
You're pulling
no,
it out of
it
the air.
exactly.
It's not.
Well,
So
well,
with
no,
the
no,
heat
no.
pump dryer, what's going to happen is it's going to get cool, really cold on the inside, which will like air
Right,
conditioner condenser coil on the inside.
right.
Oop, drop the ball. And then so your room's hotter than that coil now. It's getting heated up. So now that fluid is hotter than it should be, it's going to evaporate into a gas, and then when the compressor pumps it back into a liquid, that's
Right, but
going to get really, really hot.
what I'm saying is, where are you getting the energy?
from the room.
No, well, you have to plug your compressor
Well, the
in.
compressor is electric, so I mean you are
So
adding
because
extra energy that way.
because
But
the heat is being generated from taking ambient cold air, compressing it
No,
into
no,
hot air,
that's just part of it.
That's just
and then you run that
that's
through
just
like
building
water or
a
whatever.
thing. Like you're making a liquid that has the propensity to accept heat or get rid of heat.
Yeah.
So a heat pump. So when it's cold outside, right? You're taking the heat from outside, and you're transferring that heat through this mechanism into the house. To
It has
So
the
even-
ability to
yeah.
accept. So you're just putting it in a state to accept heat.
Even if it's 0 to, and again, this is an extreme, the right fluids work. If it's 0 degrees outside, if the coolant that you pump out to the coil that's on the outside is -20, it's still going to get heated
so
up.
pull heat
Yeah,
into that.
relatively, it pulls
Move
heat.
that heat
Yes.
inside and then transfer it out. So the heat exists somewhere. You have to have the heat which is why a
Right.
heat pump works better when it's to heat something when it's 30 degrees.
Right, but there's
than
no
when it's 0.
such thing as a passive heat pump.
Not that
Well-
I know of, because you have
So-
to. You need a lot of force to compress that
Yeah,
gas
so
into a liquid.
so again, in the energy equation, you got to get the energy from somewhere,
Yeah, so it's
right? So
it's always,
the compressor is part of
so when
it,
it's-
but it's
when it's
also
a-
the
when it's an AC, right? It's pulling it from outside. When it's
right.
geothermal, you're pulling it from a source of heat, right? The reason that
It's pumping it in
you have
rather
to
than
basically
pumping it
have
out.
a certain amount of surface area is not quite the right word. It's like volume, right? Of
Yeah.
where that
Right,
pipe is
right.
passing through. So that
like a-
you
it's like a
can
radiator in a
transfer the
car.
heat either into
Literally,
the
yeah.
ground or
Yeah.
out of the ground.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Because you're either pulling it in or pushing it in or pulling it out.
Now you could, I guess, you could theoretically have a truly passive heat pump if you got it down deep enough that the that the core of the Earth was hot enough to heat it.
Well,
up.
yes,
You
but
live in Greenland or
or yeah, next to a volcano, right? Because like Iceland, they're primarily geothermal. Like all of their
volcanoes. That's not fair.
yeah,
right, but they got
hot
volcanoes. They
springs,
got-
man.
That's something that we don't really have a lot of. So yeah,
Well, the lack of tectonic fault lines and all that.
yeah. Well, until Yellowstone blows, and then then we're all good.
Until when Yellowstone blows.
It's gonna happen
next
next
year.
week, Matt. I'm just being
Next week?
honest. It's
Oh.
next week.
Just
I
be
mean,
prepared.
just be prepared.
It's not going to
coming.
matter if you are, but just be.
I mean, first you're going to be abducted by aliens, but then it'll be exploding. Don't worry, it's going to happen.
I'm definitely not worried. I'm good.
Please don't hold your breath.
Because you need air to
Uh,
live.
Yes, and air also makes your house. So we have figured out some of the most profound meanings of life in this particular conversation. I mean, and we also understand that you can actually turn wood into liquid so long as you have Fisher-Tropsch reactors laying around. You'll be fine.
I mean,
It's going to be a household
gas.
term soon.
I'm not
Yes.
sure that's an efficient way to store. Like I'm good.
I don't
just
think so
storing
either.
it as dry wood. and
Yeah,
then
dry wood
burning
is
it.
fantastic. Yeah.
If we want to start doing stuff like that, I mean, in Midwest fry oil is a big thing, right? So
Uh-huh.
let's at least do that conversion for that diesel.
So,
You reburn that stuff. Who
the
doesn't
first
want to
time-
drive a vehicle that smells like French fries? I mean,
Right.
come
The
on.
the first time I ever experienced that, I was touring in a band, and one of the bands that we were touring with had gone out and converted their VW Bug into frying oil.
Everything you're saying just makes It infuriates me and makes perfect sense. Like,
It's the most bizarre thing because they would be like, we're like
of
getting ready to leave
course it
town.
was a VW bug.
And
It just
they were
was.
It had
like,
to be.
okay, we gotta go fuel up, and we're like, okay, where are you gonna go? And they're like, Long John Silver's or something like that. And it's like they would just pull up to some random restaurant with fried
So,
stuff
do
and
you
be like,
guys
hey,
have
can we
some
buy your
oil
old
you wanna get
oil?
rid of?
Yeah. It was the most bizarre because the strangest sentences happen. We're gonna go fuel up at
Mhm.
McDonald's. It's like, what? Like, what are you even
Well, yeah,
doing?
that's where you fuel up, right? You get your grub and your gas.
And your gas. Well, and what's weird is you guys probably know exactly what these guys looked like. Super hipster, short pants, long hair.
No
Like
shoes,
one of
maybe a
them
shirt,
he rode one of those big bicycle wheel with the giant
the
wheel in
fat
the front and the
tires.
little wheel in the back. No,
Was it
no.
the kind of
Oh,
music that could like very easily be considered to open for Beck?
Yes. Yes, yeah. Yeah, sort of like Beck meets the Lumineers kind of a thing, you know.
I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying some
No,
things
no.
just add up. They just make
No, yeah.
sense.
They just makes it like
they're
what kind of
stereotypes
a
for a reason.
mindset.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
it's
What
just
kind of a mindset is
statistics.
required to be like, hey, bro, let's go make a frying oil vehicle? Which I mean, they showed me the whole system. Pretty brilliant, pretty smart, cool. Not practical. They were always late. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation.
Now,
They
was
never
that
got
they're
done
late
on
because
time.
they're hipsters or because the vehicle was
No, it was because of the vehicle, because it was really
okay?
unreliable, and they would sometimes have to wait like 3 or 4 hours to get the oil.
Well, it didn't got to be like specially filtered, and there's something
Yep.
else like an
Well,
additive. You gotta
they put the filter in the vehicle, and then I think they had the additive.
okay.
So, but yes, no, you can't have just the raw crap the French
Yeah,
fries came out of. It doesn't really work. But yeah, no, it was this most bizarre thing ever.
Well, that's
But
why, like, when you're talking about the wood gas, right? They have to run it through several different filters. Like, one is
yeah.
to get particulates, one is like a charcoal filter to get rid
mhm.
of, other
Well, it's just one of
things.
those things. Like it's neat. It's a really cool idea, but it's not practical, or at least not
Right,
yet.
right.
And I would lend at least part of that same conversation to um, some of the renewable energy sources. Like,
Yep.
yes, they work very well in some
Yeah.
places, but we need better
Practicality.
energy
Yeah.
storage technology before renewables is the thing that we
Yeah.
entirely lean on.
You know what the best renewable is? Nuclear. It's not renewable.
I was
The
going to say
best
it's
energy
literally not renewable, but
because the situation with energy production, quote unquote, is energy density, right? So a battery doesn't have
that
good
is by
energy density.
far, yeah, the highest
Yeah,
energy
and so I
density in
mean,
existence. But
you have gasoline; it's got good energy density, way better than batteries. Batteries, they're getting way better. That's cool. At nuclear, talk about energy density. Holy crap!
yeah, I don't know what the exponent is, but it's large.
It's pretty intense, but
Well, plus,
and it's clean.
if you actually took and were smart about nuclear, right? You could like take all of that nuclear waste and like heat 100,000 homes.
Yep,
Like,
you nailed it.
if you were
Yep.
not so worried about like, people dying from it or something.
Well, It's just a side effect. Whatever. Who cares?
Radiated
Actually,
moderator and all
if you
that.
like double or triple looped it, right, where like
Yeah.
you had it going through one closed loop and then another and then
Yeah,
another,
Yeah.
like,
exchanging
you
air.
could you could effectively isolate
you've
it fairly easily.
mitigated that risk.
You know? Well, and what's
quite
funny
a
is
bit.
in the actual production of the energy at the plant, all it does is produce water vapor as a side effect. I mean, you do
Mhm.
have
And
you have
you
to
could
pull
use
out
that
the
instead of shoving it out a stinking
stack.
cooling tower.
Yeah, see, to me, they should just take that hot water, turn the turbines, pump it into town, and heat the town. Like heat the whole town.
But people are so scared of the nuclear boogeyman that that would
Right.
never happen.
Yeah. And I would, to me, I think the future of nuclear is like smaller scale nuclear. Like everyone considers nuclear power plants as like these big monstrosities. And to get like the really massive energy production, whatever, you have to have this big massive monstrosity. But if you just had them like regionally that were pretty small, then the danger goes down exponentially in terms of what could happen should the worst happen, right?
Mhm.
Like if you make a big giant nuke plant, then obviously the worst case is a bad, bad, bad situation, But if you have a pretty small one, the worst case is not a terrible, terrible situation. Plus, it's easier to maintain. It's easier to keep, running at a good level. It's easier to just take care of. It's cheaper, blah, blah, blah. Like it just reduces the danger significantly. But yeah, I think Chernobyl and Fukushima and Three Mile Island, those three particular instances have just scared everybody away. It's just like flying. Like you're way
What?
safer to get on a plane.
I will not get on a plane. So
You're way like statistically, you're way safer. Way, 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 way,
Yeah,
way
roads are terrible.
on a plane than getting in a car. Getting in a car
But
compared to
I'm
a
in
plane is like,
control
do
of
you
the
want to
car.
die?
Right, but are you controlling
why.
the semi that crosses the barrier in front of you?
Right. I was gonna say, and that's why. But
I
just
can avoid
statistically,
it.
like
I have reflexes like an old cat.
you're like, what is it, Drax? Drax the destroyer. Nothing
Oh.
goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it. But the thing is like statistically, airplanes are way, 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 way safer. So if you compare like a coal plant to a nuke plant, like how many people have died in traditional coal plants and gas plants?
In the plants or in the harvesting of the coal, because that's a whole another thing.
I would say let's just go plants. I would say even in the plants, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people.
Your coal harvesting is way worse though.
And coal, yeah, well, and coal mining is way worse than.
But I guess uranium mining's not good either.
I was gonna say, then we have to compare apples to apples because uranium mining and coal mining might be equivalently dangerous.
I think coal's
Depends
probably
on where
worse.
you're mining the coal. Like if you're doing
Yeah.
a strip mine in Wyoming,
Whatever.
but if you're
no
doing
big deal.
an underground mine in West
Shaft mine.
Virginia,
Right.
different
Shaft
story.
mining is where it really gets dangerous. I was watching an interview with a guy who was a shaft miner, and he talked about how when you get down deep, the walls are like 125 degrees. Like the
Yeah.
walls of the
I don't know how
actual-
far down you got to get, but yeah,
yeah, it was really deep, but it was like they were so hot they could cook food on it if they wanted to. Now he said they wouldn't because it tastes like sulfur, but I mean they would, that you could
so just
you
have
could,
eggs, it'd be
you
fine.
could fry an egg, right? and they had like because of how hot it was, they had mandatory breaks in like rooms that are air conditioned. They had to go in there and cool down. But it just makes me think about way back when, right? When they were just starting to do this crap, guys would go down there and just cook all day.
We'll cook all day and not have like you're breathing in particulate because
Yeah, like there's
respirators
no- yeah.
probably weren't a
Black
thing. And
Yeah.
Just nuts. Well, and if you come back up, your lungs are all black and sooty and full of coal and what do they call it? Miner's lung, I think is what they call it.
black
Black
lung.
lung,
Yeah.
black lung. Thank you. Yeah, and so yeah, but it's just one of those like I think the traditional energy production sources are a lot more like driving a car, whereas nuclear is a lot more like flying an airplane. The issue is when something bad with nuclear happens, it's so rare that it's easy to remember.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to remember plane crashes because there's so few of them. It's hard to remember car crashes because if you kept track of all the car crashes, you would not have a life.
Yeah. How many people
You
in
know, like-
Nebraska have died this year in accidents?
In car crashes, right?
Probably 200-300 at least.
Yeah, I think it might be closer to 500.
Yeah.
I think I saw it out on the interstate the other
Yeah,
day.
I know that's the only reason I know
Yeah.
that it's a number.
Yeah.
Within the
Yeah.
hundreds.
Right. And so it's one of those like, per state 500-ish, times 50. I mean, that's just the US. And
Well, Nebraska.
So
has
it's-
a.
I was gonna
very
say our
small
population's pretty
percentage.
low compared to
yeah,
East
well,
and
yeah,
West
because
Coast.
you could probably go way up if the population goes up and then driving whatever. But I think that's the thing with nuclear is because you can name the things that have happened, it makes it more scary. It makes it more terrifying. Especially, I mean, but the hard part about nuke is, Chernobyl, that was the USSR. Obviously, it was early days of nukes and it was the USSR, and they weren't really, they weren't a big
the safety
proponent
practices
of-
were terrible. Like, and they
Yeah.
didn't follow up on things. They kind of knew the problem was coming
Yeah, they weren't really,
beforehand. And
they weren't really a big proponent of like human suffering being an issue or anything like that.
Oh,
It
they were
wasn't really a big
100%
deal.
Gulags, right?
Yeah, the gulag. Yeah, they didn't
They were
really.
all
I mean,
about
it
human
was a big
suffering.
deal. Yeah, they were not averse to human suffering
Oh.
at all. They were totally cool with it. So the Chernobyl is. It's kind of hard to judge that by modern practices. Then you go to Fukushima. I mean, that's way closer. What was that? What year was that? Oh,
either 15 or
11?
2011, 2012.
It was 11.
I was thinking it was
at a
11.
conference when it happened.
2011. So, and again, that's modern history. So that's not a long time ago, but it was in a tsunami zone. Like, why would you put it in a tsunami zone? And Chris and I talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Like
Like
every
power
single-
outages at the exact wrong, well, depending on how you look at it, right or wrong, the right time for this disaster to happen, the wrong time
Right.
for people.
which
like-
makes you go, Was it an inside job?
Yeah, they had backup generators to make sure that the coolant would keep cycling, and like they
Those
failed,
died.
and
Yeah.
then like the backup to the backup failed because of the tsunami washed in and ruined those, and yeah, it was like just everything stacked on top of each other to make the
Yeah, it
perfect
was
terrible storm.
it was
Yeah, but I
bad.
think it
And
was way less worse than
yeah,
Chernobyl.
Oh, way
well,
way less.
they were like I remember they were forecasting the crazy debilitating destructive outcomes of Fukushima, and it actually was significantly less of an impact than it was predicted.
Well,
No,
Which
even
well,
again,
Chernobyl, if you actually look at it, like the animals in that area
they're fine.
are like they
Yeah,
probably don't live as long, but it doesn't
right.
like the only
Did you
thing
see the
it hurts is
documentary?
your multi. I don't know if I've seen a recent one, but I've seen
Yeah,
one.
yeah, about the dogs of Chernobyl.
I don't
That was
know
a
if
not
I saw
cool
the
specifically
whole
that,
thing.
documentary.
but
Yeah, if you should look it up. It's crazy because they really are healthy and they're flourishing and they're fine.
I mean,
Everything's
it's really
fine.
only a problem if you want to be a multi-decade long
Right.
species like
Issue.
humans, right? Like
Yeah, right.
the
Yeah, and I don't even
deer
know.
and other animals, you know, they're not
Right.
crazy bad. It's just they might die
No.
sooner than normal, but like
Right. The thing
they're
I
getting
think
old
is
enough to procreate.
right. That's all that matters. Well, and I think what would be interesting is one thing that we've never actually really studied as a species is what does prolonged radiation actually do to a living creature? And we can't do that because it's called torture, right? Um, but the Soviets did a nice little solid for us, right? Because they went
They
ahead and
did
did
an
it,
experiment, and
right? And so now we have all these dogs, and it'd be really interesting. Like, did their DNA change? Did they change? And like, what kind of adaptations? What I think there's a lot of information there in terms of, say, radiation poisoning, radiation. Like I think there's some really interesting stuff that could be gleaned from that because the animals in the area are flourishing. Now, again, I don't know what their lifespans were, so it's maybe less.
the most
But
important question to determine is, do they have superpowers?
yeah, that's what I was disappointed with. None of them could fly, but whatever, it's fine.
none
I
of
was
them
okay
had
with it.
like 8 legs. Like
Yeah, I was hoping they'd be like spider dogs. It sounds
It's just
terrifying.
it's I was just this is literally nightmare fuel.
You see like a sparrow and it lands and it's got 8 legs. It's like
Have you ever
terrible.
seen the ridiculous videos where they put a spider costume on small dogs on Halloween at night
Yes.
on the streets? And people just lose their minds.
So we have a black cat. So Matt has a black cat too. His looks a lot like mine. And I want to get a black tarantula outfit for her and put it on her during Halloween because she would look like such a nefarious little monster with 8 legs skittering
See,
around the
now
house.
here's my problem with that. Like, yes, it's funny to watch those videos, but that's just asking for someone to shoot your dog or cat.
Yeah, no, our
Like,
cat would stay inside. Yes.
someone will freak out.
Yeah. Our cat would stay inside. It would be a very much not a outside kind of situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, a dog running around on the street. I don't know. I might be the one to shoot it. I don't like the idea of dog or of not
3 foot tall spider
three
coming
foot tall
charging at you.
spiders. I just don't like it. I
sounds like
don't
Australia.
enjoy that. Yeah.
This is normal outback behavior.
Oh, everything wants to murder you. That's Australia.
If one of the most venomous spiders in the world is able to bite through my thick leather boot without any
Uh-huh.
trouble whatsoever, no thank you. No
If they have
thank you.
spiders big enough to eat birds, I don't think so. I don't think I want to go there. Well, and during
If they
flood,
name their spiders after the fact that they eat
that
birds,
they eat birds, it's like no, I'm okay. I'm fine.
oh no,
Have you seen any of the pictures of during flood season when the spiders go up into the trees?
I
It
don't
is
think so.
it's nightmare fuel. I mean, it's just straight up nightmare fuel. Let's see if I can find one.
I don't know if I want to see it.
It's just not a pleasant.
It's like the movie Eight-Legged Freaks.
Yeah, it's.
I mean,
let's see if
so
can
I
find
have
a-
I have colleagues who live in Florida, and they get National Weather Service warnings that iguanas will be falling out of trees because it got too cold last night.
Oh my
Oh, yeah, it's like there's pest exterminators on golf course with them high-powered pneumatic pre-charged air rifles that just their job is literally to hunt iguanas out of trees.
Oh, they are a problem. Down
It's an
here.
invasive species, yeah.
Let's see here. I'm going to share this for a moment, just so you two have the nightmare fuel here. There you go. That's all the trees
Okay, no,
around.
see, like I get it. I get that happens. It's floods.
Yeah.
Spiders go up in trees.
Yeah.
Why are the people underneath those trees?
Yeah. Yeah. You see those two people just hanging, just chilling, relaxing, enjoying life. No big deal.
What you don't see is the 8 people that are webbed up inside the tree.
Right. That are dead. It's every time I see this, I'm like, oh, it's
Did you
Shelob,
ever
know?
see the oh, it was either late 70s or an 80s movie where the clowns were aliens and the circus tent was their spaceship and they would cocoon people and stick straws in them and drink
Oh.
them.
I don't. Is that the clowns from Mars or whatever?
Something like that. Yeah, killer clowns
Yeah.
from outer space or something like
Yes,
that.
that's exactly what it was. Killer clowns from
Ugh.
outer space. Holy crap! I'd forgotten about that.
They stick
don't-
straws and cocoon people and drink them like
I mean,
milkshakes.
that sounds like
It's like a human
Doctor
Capri
Who.
Sun.
Well, you know what that sounds like? Sounds like on Dune when the Fremen, when someone dies, they put them in that bag, and then they like suck all the juice out of them, all the water out of them. Have you seen the new Dune yet? Either of you?
I have not, and I'm also a terrible person because although I'm like big into fantasy and some sci-fi and stuff like that, I have never followed the original Dune, the books, or the movies.
Yeah, but see, I don't.
I
don't
have
think you
outed
to.
myself and I apologize.
Like,
That's all right.
Why do like? I don't think it should be something to be ashamed of. Like,
No, it's definitely.
Oh,
not
it's
something to be
it's
ashamed of.
definitely shameful.
No, it's a great when I think so because I pushed against Dune for a good long time. Like I was like, it was a bit of a hipster of me. I'm like, everybody likes Dune, so screw them, you know. And
Way to be a contrarian, Adam.
yeah, I was I mean, being dumb. You know, when I was young, I'm like, I'm cool, and everybody not cool is reading Dune, so I'm not gonna read Dune. But then when I finally did, I didn't read Dune until 2017, I believe, is when I read it, I didn't even read it. I just got it on audiobook because I was driving a lot
But
at
see,
the time
that's
for my
re-
job. Yeah, I mean, good enough. And by the way, the audiobook narrator was one of the best audiobook narrators I've ever heard. Simon Vance. I don't know if you've ever heard any of his works.
The name sounds familiar, but I'm not-
Yeah. If you can get an audiobook with Simon Vance narrating, you got a good one. That's going to be incredible. Anyway, so he narrated Dune and I was like, I needed something. And I was kind of in a hurry. So I grabbed Dune and I started listening to it and it was like, this is incredible. This is amazing. I did not realize how good this
It's
was.
very highly touted.
Yeah. And it stood up to its legacy, right? Because I was, again, Mr. Contrarian a little bit. I was like, I'll be the judge of that. You know. But it ended up being really, 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 really good. And then the new movies are pretty good representation of the books. Again, it's sort of like Lord of the Rings to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you know, the books to the movies. I mean, is it
Mhm.
direct? No. Yeah, there's some creative liberties, yes. But was Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, the movies, a good representation of the books? Yes. It's the same thing with Dune, you know, like the representation is good. It's a very good one, and it's very useful. Again, it's a lot like Lord of the Rings too, because the first one is kind of boring, you know, and the second and the third are going to be the ones that are most interesting. So, but yeah, no, Dune, that was really cool. How did we even get on Dune?
I don't know.
I was going to mention something. I don't know what I was going to
We have the look shiny over there
Yeah.
tangential problem in conversations.
I think we were talking about Australia,
yes,
bird eating things.
straws.
Peter Jackson,
Oh, straws. Yeah, that's right. Sucking the venom out. We were talking about
Yep.
the killer
Yep,
clowns.
there you
There you
go.
go.
human
That's
Capri Sun, got it.
Yeah. Human Capri Sun. I doubt it tastes that good. I'm gonna be honest with you.
I
but-
mean, you're not a spider, so I don't think you are.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what? You're right.
Your
I am.
opinion doesn't matter in
You're
this.
I'm not-
probably not a spider.
I'm not a spider. As you
Oh,
see, like,
holy crap!
an extra leg come up and itch my head. You know, like,
Probably.
what was that? Did I just see something insane?
No,
No,
that-
you saw
that's-
nothing.
that
Don't worry
was an
about it.
Artifact of the video compression.
Yeah, just an artifact. Don't worry about it. Wow, I looked up Australian spider trees, and now I'm gonna have nightmares for the rest of my life. So there we go. Because not only did they show the
And
web,
now you got to
they
share
showed
your
the
nightmares
spiders.
with us. Is
Yeah.
that, is
Nope,
that
I'm
what's
not
going to
gonna
happen?
Nope, I only showed that one picture, and I'm not gonna make you suffer, nor the viewers. I'm not gonna make anybody suffer through that. Boo. My son currently is fighting through a nice case of arachnophobia, and do you know what it originates from? The Mandalorian, the frost spiders. Did you guys see that episode at some point?
See, where were they? Oh, they were
I
in
don't
that
remember.
cave, right?
Yes, in the cave, and they're like white.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I got to be honest, it kind of gave me, and I don't have arachnophobia. It gave me the heebie-jeebies too. Like it was just. Anyway, so he's not really a fan of spiders. What's funny is he saw Lord of the Rings with Shelob and didn't really mind. It was the ones in the Mandalorian that just kicked his butt.
There's also some in Harry Potter.
Yeah. Those didn't bother him either, I don't think. I had, you know what? When I was young, I had a really bad case of arachnophobia, and you know where it originated from? The movie called Arachnophobia.
Oh wow, that's a
dude.
Yeah.
Oh. So where I was living at the time, right over the toilet, there was a vent. And the vent was an exact replica of one of the vents the spiders came out of in the movie. And so, you know, I'd go to the bathroom and I'd look up and I'd be like, they're coming out any moment now. And that vent was responsible for a lot of premature endings of things that shouldn't have been. I was probably a big mess for a while, but I was terrified. I was just terrified of that stupid thing. And you know, I went back and watched Arachnophobia. It's horrible. It's not really that scary, but
yeah,
for some reason, I actually got to see it when I was in kindergarten.
Graphics
yeah,
now
a little different.
Back then.
Yeah, because I remember watching Superman. I remember watching the Christopher Reeve Superman and being like, how'd they actually make him fly?
Yeah,
like I remember legitimately thinking about that. And now when you see it, you're like, well, duh, you know.
I like how academic discussions can devolve into toilet spiders.
We should rename this entire podcast Toilet Spiders. Anybody scrolling through it be like, toilet spiders? Why do I want to listen to toilet spiders?
I don't know. I bet it would be an attention getter though. That's one heck of an icebreaker.
You were saying how bad it was. So have you ever heard about how they used to do green screen when they didn't have a green screen? So
Might have, but
if you watch Mary Poppins, right? You guys have seen that movie, right?
Yes.
So they didn't actually use green screen. So there's a special type of light that Disney made that emits basically one frequency, very narrow frequency of light. And you can illuminate the entire scene with that and then use that as the key. And
whoa.
So you could get like you could see like her hair is just perfect, right? And the background is made up because it's a perfect key because you can just filter out that one color. And so you can have any color you want on.
It's almost like they did it best to begin with. It's sort of like Neumann mics versus modern mics,
they only had like, I think it was like 3 of them.
Yeah.
And they lost them all.
Yeah, of course.
And they were kind of expensive, right? Because you have to use a particular type of material that emits that one frequency of light.
Mm-hmm.
Which would have been some sort of a element. I'm assuming it was a specific element, because every element, when excited, emits a very specific frequency. Like cobalt is a kind of a blue, strontium is kind of a red, sodium is a green. I forget what's yellow. Sulfur is yellow, obviously. And if you choose the right, so fireworks generally capitalize on that. But if you choose a frequency from a atomic particle that's rare,
sodium vapor.
So is a sodium vapor. And was that the one that was like a green? Is that what it was?
No, it's like a really bright yellow.
Bright yellow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like take that same idea and change it to, like, this is kind of tangential, but have you ever looked at the history of LEDs and the different colors? How like red and green were invented like long ago, but blue was like yes, because I'm sure we watched the same video.
Yes, we did.
Blue was exceptionally difficult to come up with.
What a good documentary that was, though.
It was.
It was Veritasium. Is that who it was?
It might have been. I don't remember, but yeah, it was again one of those techie, sciencey YouTubers.
So cool.
Yes, it was there's a video right here, Veritasium.
What a cool video.
Well, because then you think about, like, the interesting thing is, like, green and red were really hard, so that kind of limited the colors they could reproduce. But then once they finally had blue, now varying the intensity of and the arrangement of the LEDs, you got any color, literally any color.
Yeah, you got full color now, and it was amazing how what's that?
Yeah. Well, blue green doesn't exist.
No,
so,
it does.
Like,
but like, so the rods and the cones in your eyes, the same cone reacts. I hate my Mac. The same cone is used for both. Like you have two different cones and they can look at two different things, but you can't
Mhm.
look at the blue and the green at the same time.
Well,
So that's why there
we
is no
favor
blue
green too, don't we? Like green, we see green more intensely than we do. I think it's green.
All I can say to this conversation is speak for yourselves.
I forgot.
Some of us, our cones are broken.
Some of us are what
Matt
we call
has a nice green
colorblind.
shirt on.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that green shirt, man. Excellent. Yeah, it's
So you're
the
red-green
blue
colorblind,
green.
right?
Yeah, I'm red green. So all red green means is like it's just like all the colors are desaturated pretty much. So like dark anything, like a dark red looks like a dark green, looks like a dark brown, looks like a dark anything. Yeah. Or like a purple or
Or
a blue.
or the entire world has been lying to you your entire life, and those colors actually don't exist.
My daughter likes to
Conspiracy.
play that game. She really loves to play that game. To the point now where she's like, "Dad, look at those beautiful yellow flowers." I'm like, "I don't trust you. I think they're green." She's like, "No, they're actually yellow." But she messes around with me a lot. She plays the mind games with it. But yeah, I did put on some of those colorblind glasses things.
And find out that people are mostly lying about them.
And yeah, and basically my takeaway is if I have been hearing impaired my entire life and suddenly I hear like everybody else does, it's a cacophony and it drives you insane and it's just too much.
Mhm.
So I put those things on and I'm like, yeah, it was too much. Like there was too much color. I felt like I
Yeah.
was on an LSD trip or something crazy. Like it was just way too much. So I promptly took them off and said I will never look through those again because I'm quite
Don't
happy.
most of them just like completely oversaturate a single color? Yeah.
It just increases saturation. That's why
Yeah.
you get like the red, green, and the blue, whatever, the different varieties of glasses. Because one of
Okay,
them
yeah. So
will
it's to
add
make up for your
saturation.
deficiency. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because my cones are all messed up.
See,
But you
now
know
here's
what?
my question: how do you know that you're red-green colorblind when you don't know what red and green are?
Somebody else had to
Because you
tell me.
can't tell the difference.
Yeah, somebody else
Right, but
had to
then
tell
how
me.
do you how do you
Well, but here's the
describe that
thing.
to someone if you don't know?
Here's the thing. I do know the difference in red and green. It's just when they're not fully saturated, I can't tell the difference. So
Like, I can tell my
I know
shirt is
Matt's.
red.
Yeah, Matt's shirt is red. I can tell red and green, like primary red, primary green. Like I got that, no big deal. It's when they start getting not so red and not so green that it's a lot harder to differentiate. To me, it's just like you get an old school color TV, like Generation 1 color TV, and all the color is there, but it's sort of pale and bland. That's my eyes, right? Like you just don't have a lot of saturation for the colors. So you get a little if there's not a lot of color in the color I'm looking at, then it's hard to understand. Like for the longest time, I didn't realize, but I see all cars as different shades of gray.
Well, this will be a fun one in a closed room with no natural light and a crappy overhead LED light. What color is my shirt?
I think it's green.
Slate gray.
Yeah, I was gonna say
See,
It's
brown.
like
there
a
you
dark
go.
gray.
Yeah. So for me, like, what's crazy is I can see the gray now.
Yeah, like once you it's the blue black gold or gold
Yeah.
black and blue gray whatever blue gold grass.
The
Thing all over again.
the most bizarre one is hot pink and like a light gray. I can't tell the difference. Like I had a friend who had a
definitely
Weimaraner. Yeah, who had a Weimaraner dog. That's a gray, right? You ever seen a Weimaraner?
I don't know that I have, but
And you thought it was hot pink?
I swore up and down that thing was hot pink. Like I knew it was. And I just took it for okay, it is what it is. And I remember one day I was like, yeah, your dog's hot pink.
oh, okay, yeah.
He looks at me like
Chris and I are like, this is like a fever dream of like, little dogs are hot pink, and
Yep.
it's like, what are we talking?
well,
So
my-
I got a question for you then, Adam.
Okay.
So bringing this all back to since we're all programmers, like, do you pick out different color schemes in like your code editors because,
Mhm.
like,
Straight up.
are there? So what ones would you use?
I don't know. I don't really know the names. Some of them that have like dark. So like the let me think. There is one, I think it's the default Vim that is impossible for me to see. Like, because they're
There
like,
was
dark reds, I think, and I can't even see it with the background.
Whatever the default was on those, like literally dining room table size laptops that we used for Red Team Go class,
Yes. Yes.
those the default Vim, even for someone who has full color vision like me, like we had to find special color codes to change the text because you couldn't see anything on them.
Yeah, I think I did. Is there like one called, what are the Vims? Sahara?
But those probably only had like,
Is there?
limited colors anyway on those old laptops.
Wow. I don't think they were that old.
Well, I mean like
Matt's like, I take personal offense to this.
yeah.
I remember when I got a 486. And that was like decent. No, actually, no. I got my first computer personally for me when I went to college was 333 megahertz.
I don't even remember. Mine was it was an HP combo that come with a printer. It had, I think, it was either 128 or 256 of RAM. And it only had one. It had two slots and only one slot. Yeah.
Megabytes. Megabytes.
My computer, first one, you guys are gonna go, was an Apple IIc, straight up. I used to play Dynasty on that bad boy. I'd chunk it in there. Shunk.
So did that have the 5.25,
Yep.
5.5 inch?
And it was actually floppy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a floppy that was floppy.
So the first computer, well, I remember lots of old computers, but like the first computer I programmed was in grade school, and it was Apple IIe's. And
yes, yeah, those are the little ones. Yep,
the 5.5 inch floppies, and like some of the computers, I think we all had 2 diskette drives. So the first one you'd load your OS into.
Yep,
and then
that's
the second
exactly right.
You'd save your program.
Yep, that's exactly right. So I have actually some color schemes that we can talk about for a second here.
Just to to relate the difference in our journeys. The first computer I programmed on was an Acer laptop with I think like 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, and because I didn't do it till like 6 years ago.
Okay, you can see yourself out the door. Goodbye.
Yeah, had a little bit of a late start. It's okay.
Just get out of here. Just.
So which
all right. So.
This?
So looking, these are just basic Vim schemes.
Yeah.
So the evening, I can't, those last 2 lines.
Is it just the purple text, or
I don't know.
In brackets, the stuff in brackets.
Yeah, it's entry point, and then I can, if I squint hard enough, I can see it's echo hello.
It's somewhat hard for me to read it. Like I can see, but it is, it's not clear.
And then the peach puff, the one right below it, is also very difficult on the echo.
That's red black. That's bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really difficult. The one that's
like purple.
It's like blue, purple. Yeah. Here's a colorblind guy telling you what color it is.
Yeah, it's the same.
I wish Matt would have just been like, "Oh, really, Adam? Please tell us more."
Share with us your expertise on color.
The top
please
one
tell us.
Color.
It's a dark blue.
Not quite dark. But...
Or sorry, the upper right hand, the Delic. Is that dark blue?
No, it's purple.
All right, what's your what do I want to say? What's your hex code for the colors, Adam? Let's go. Come on.
Oh gosh. So the one of this that works the best is the actual Delic, the color scheme Delic. That works pretty good for me. Anything high contrast, anything high contrast works great for me. I don't like morning because I got eye floaties, so that really sucks whenever you're trying to look at grays with floaties in your eyeballs.
Do you notice?
So for me,
like I have floaters too, but I don't.
I got really bad floaters. I was on a medicine for a long time that when you come off of it, it gives you eyeball floaters.
Oh.
And they
just congealed proteins in your eye. It's fine.
Yeah. And for the longest time, I was like, hey, when do these go away? And then I did research, and it's like they never go away. Good luck.
They did.
They're like, what? No. What they said was, they don't go away, but you can have the jelly sucked out of your eyeballs, and they can.
I was just gonna say you could get a fluid change, like a transmission oil change for your eyeballs.
And I was like, that
will get rid of them.
I was like, oh, what's that like? And then they're like, well, you're awake. I was like, nope, I'm done with that. Not gonna do it.
No, it's fine because they'll put like a bolt device that keeps your eye open and keeps your head still. It's fine.
That sounds even worse. Now it's
right.
It's like a Clockwork Orange. Like I just feel like
it's introducing spiders, and that's it. Like
Yeah, and
spider is the doctor that does the procedure.
no. They have these little spiders that crawl into your eyeball and suck out all the junk, and it's like,
It's like
oh
having
no.
leeches.
Now,
right?
you know, we're probably not that far away from nanites doing that. So
Probably not, honestly. Like a lot of the sci-fi that I used to enjoy when I was younger was a lot of nanotechnology. Like I loved all that nanotechnology stuff because the imagination can go haywire with it. Obviously, now that I'm a little older, there's a lot of difficulty in getting processing that small, but maybe we'll figure it out
how about the
someday.
human brain interface chip that
Yeah,
Musk is working on?
I don't like
That's
it.
not
It's nightmare
slightly
fuel,
terrifying.
but
Yeah.
they're gonna start injecting ads directly into my brain. Like that sounds awesome. I think that's
Total
wonderful.
Recall, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because to me, here's the thing: any multimedia device will eventually have ads played in it.
Yes,
Period.
for sure.
That's all there is to it. So that means I'm gonna have a Neuralink, and I'm gonna be like, "Hey, I want to watch something in my retinal display."
I think you've been
Bang!
watching
Advertisement.
But
I've
hey,
been
you could
watching
buy
too
a
much,
vacation to Maui without actually going to Maui.
Right. Yeah. I just have to watch ads every
What's the show on Netflix? Black Mirror.
Black
You've been
Mirror.
watching too
Yeah.
much Black Mirror.
I
Like,
I watch what is his name? Adam Savage, is that his name? The guy from Mythbusters?
Yes.
So I watch a lot of him. He's a great dude. And he actually I was just watching this
because
morning.
his name is Adam.
Yeah, 'cause his name's
Nah.
Adam. All people named Adam are the best. I was just watching this morning, someone asked him a question, what kind of a scientific or a sci-fi future are we heading toward? And he said, "Man, I would love for it to be like Star Trek, where everybody's got food, everybody has a place to live, everything's awesome, wonderful for the best of humanity." And he's like, "But I'm pretty sure it's going to be more like Black Mirror."
I'm leaning more towards idiocracy.
Well, it's like a mix between Idiocracy and Black Mirror. I think that's where we're going, right?
Probably.
Yeah, but see, this is like nothing new. Like if you look
No.
in
Mhm.
in newspapers, they said TV was gonna ruin everybody,
And it did.
and it did. Like, but did it?
Well, see, but they also said that the smartphone apps weren't going to ruin our kids' minds. And
it
here we
did.
are.
Yeah.
It did.
Well, ultimately, it's a varying degree of nuance. I think that's
Yeah.
what Matt was saying. Like, has TV been an overall net good for us? No. But has it destroyed the world? No. Like I think there's a
could be
little
on
bit of
board with
nuance.
that.
Same thing with apps. Like, yeah, they've done quite a lot of damage, but there's still use. There, I mean, it's not just all negative, right? Like, there's a lot of
Well,
usefulness
if
too.
you look at like 100%, if I look at the benefit of YouTube, right? Like if there is literally something wrong with my vehicle, right? I can look up how
Yeah.
do I repair
You can
it?
find, the ability to disseminate information in video form,
Now,
which
is it guaranteed to be right? Probably not. But like, is it good enough? Like,
Um,
if I watch somebody tear something apart, well, I don't think
Yeah.
they faked it, right?
Nope.
And
but
I
also
can do
if
that
you
too, and
Yeah.
but also if you then find another video from another source on the same topic that does
corroborate.
basically the same thing, yeah, you can
Mhm.
you can cross-reference it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, I think-
there's so much. Like, there's a lot of things that are good. There's a lot of things that are bad, right? Like
Right.
they used to play ads, saying, feed your baby Coca-Cola. We figured out that was probably bad.
Just a
Also,
little bit, right?
Coca-Cola used to be made with cocaine leaves.
Yeah.
There also used to be that too.
Well, and 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Marlboro, like
True. So
Yeah.
I feel
Well-
like it's clearly a something that has happened for a long time. I mean, you have Luddites, right, for a reason, right? People who
Yeah.
are afraid of whatever
Technology.
it is that is coming up.
There are things in technology that are used for nefarious and not
Yeah,
even
and I-
intentionally nefarious purposes.
I think also, like, look at the Industrial Revolution. I think there is also negativity that is associated. So, for instance, going into the Industrial Revolution, it did produce some really disgusting things, like Upton Sinclair, right? Like, a lot of those writings on the early Industrial Revolution brought out a lot of the negative things that then were subsequently fixed, right? That were sort of worked with. And so I think that's the growth of technology usually goes through that sort of ebb and flow. My concern is we're growing so fast
Well, it's
that it's
exponential,
hard.
right? It's been up to this
Yeah,
point. I don't think it will continue to be that way, but
I don't think so either. But we're growing so fast. How it takes humans a lot of time to deal with stuff.
Mhm.
And to figure out what the ramifications, like for instance, I mean, at some point in history humans had fire, right? I'm sure initially that was bizarre because people are lighting stuff on fire and it's causing lots of damage and people are dying and it's horrible. But then sort of when humanity kind of figured out, okay, here's what's good about fire, here's what's bad about fire, here's how we use fire, then it sort of settled down. I think the advent of the internet and the advent of computing is akin to the discovery of fire, right? Like, and we're so barely into it as a
Mhm.
human species. So we're sort of in the early blustery days of the discovery of some great, the opening of a Pandora's box. And now for us as humanity, we have to figure out what in the world we're
well,
going
and
to do
I
with it.
think we're seeing so I've with my kids, right? I've noticed that of course their habits, they have different technology than I had when I was a kid, and I've noticed that their their brains are not mature like mine, right? So like I have to put limits and take things away, and
Hmm.
I'm almost to the point like I last night I was saying, okay, phones need to be like not in our rooms at 10 o'clock
Hmm.
because they just have that attention that
Well, there's negative like sleep aspects, and yeah, there's all kinds of
well yeah it's yes right it
Well, and it is addictive. Like
yeah.
and it's
yes
like there can be good things that come of digital devices, but it's also good to admit they're addictive. They are very addictive. And
yeah.
so when you're younger, you need to have a parent or a guardian that helps you manage those
That's why
inclinations.
your parents are there's one center of your brain I heard on a YouTube video. Like your parent is that piece, right? You're missing it,
Hmm.
Yes.
and they are saying,
Yes.
okay, you need to go eat lunch and make sure you drink and put on sunscreen and
Yes.
and all of these
Yeah.
things because your brain isn't like, well, I'm not going to get skin cancer, or I'm not going
Right.
to
Yeah.
be dehydrated or
Right.
whatever, right? And your parents have
I don't
to.
need to take a shower. Nobody really cares. I don't stink.
Oh,
Right.
you do.
Like, yeah. And like, and
Well,
that,
Yes, Adam.
what's
You stink.
interesting. Yeah. I do stink. I smell
I can
like
smell you from
glory.
here.
so like when I was younger, when I was high school and teenager, and my dad and brother do construction, and I've worked with them off and on many a times. And just growing up in general, like whenever we would go out hunting or shooting, oh, you're wearing earplugs, what a wimp. Or you're wearing
Right.
goggles, you're wearing ear protection, gloves, really. And now you start to see wow, I was really stupid because for one, now I have permanent tinnitus, never going away.
Yep, 100%.
So just
I had
and
a,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I toured in a rock band for like 12 to 13 years. And then worked in recording studios for a very long time, approximately like 20 years. And I remember at the beginning, I had a guitar player. He was the best man at my wedding, still my best friend. He always wore earplugs.
Hmm.
And I remember way back at the beginning, I was like, loser.
Yeah, like right. You used to make
Like,
fun of the
what's
people that
wrong?
were
What's wrong
safe,
with you, you baby? You baby. Guess what? He can still hear, and I
right?
am almost deaf.
Yeah.
And now he is the one. Every time, like he is the one with the smile on his face now. And because yeah, it's one of those like when you're young, you feel invincible. You don't really think that stuff through. You don't really think about the long-term ramifications of your actions, right? Because the
Hmm.
the frontal lobe,
Yeah.
it's not
Developed.
fully matured, right? So you have to have that conscience in your brain, that frontal lobe that manages the more animalistic inclinations of, hey, reach for your phone,
Yeah, and so
and
I think we're having to grow right through these
right,
things.
Mhm.
figure
I
it out.
think there
We got to
is
figure it out.
there is a backlash on a lot of things. People are
Mhm.
realizing like, okay, do I really need an app for that? I have too
Right.
many
Mm.
apps.
Well, there's so many things that were designed with a completely benign, seemingly useful purpose that just turn out horribly wrong. And I
Right.
always go back because now
have you
go
listened
ahead.
to Cory Doctorow
I don't
or
think
read
so.
his? Do you know who he is?
I
I
don't
do
know who that
not.
is.
He is like he is a sort of internet freedom loving guy. He releases all of his books without DRM. Like he won't do
Oh, that's cool.
Audible
I got it
because
pulled
they
up
put
here.
DRM. He is from what I've never read any of his books, but from all accounts, he is a great sci-fi author. So he actually has a term for this. It's called the enshittification of the internet. Right?
Yes.
Where they give you a
Yes.
thing and it seems
I-
like it's great, right?
I know this guy you're talking about now that you use
Yeah.
that term. I
Yeah.
know exactly who this is. Yes.
So they
And,
make it,
yep.
they make it and they sell you on it and then they just turn it to trash. And
Yeah.
Let's just talk about Amazon for a moment. That might,
Well, talking about things that were added for benign purposes, I always, because I've done, to get back to the academic side, done multiple papers on it now at this point on Log4Shell. Someone thought it was a really good idea to have this awesome Java logging library. People want something simple and easy to do their logging for them. Great. Someone then came along. It's open source. Hey, let's add this ability to look up common Java stuff because programmers are going to want to do that. This is really helpful. Awesome.
Right.
Well, let's also allow it to interface with LDAP and other directory services for this lookup. And what you end up with is something that when a specific string is put in, it just executes it without question. And the internet literally
sounds-
almost burnt down.
You know what?
Overnight.
Just executing a string without question. That sounds really secure. I like that. That's
right.
That's definitely not an issue. That's a
But
feature.
yeah, it seemed like a great idea on the surface. It was going to help programmers out.
You know what I love to do?
And
I
it
like
almost
to
burned down the entire internet.
I like to let users create their own SQL queries. I just shove that right into my SQL. I love it. It's great. They can do all the work. I don't need to worry about it. It's fine.
I like
no.
users being able to reference other sites through,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
from my
I like
site.
it. Yeah, I like to be able to, maybe they have their bank account open in another tab or something. It's not a big
I want to be
deal.
able to just reach over and look at that. I'm
Yeah,
just curious.
just-
Don't
just
worry
grab
about
it.
it. Just
you guys are just a bunch of boo-hoos.
educate a security professional.
Oh gosh.
he is our guru. He's our what are we, the Padawans, and he is the Jedi master. That's the way that it works. And now that the little Padawans are becoming more like Anakin, and they're unruly, and they're probably
definitely.
slightly murderous.
You killed all of them. They're all dead.
Yeah, that'll be hilarious when you're the Dr. Vodder of two very obnoxious youngins, right?
Well, I gotta have what? There's always gotta be two Sith, right? Like so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chris,
and there's always
Chris and I are
two.
gonna have to battle. Which one of us is Count Dooku? Which one of us is Darth Maul? I don't know.
Well, you know what? I remember listening to the quote that Yoda says that only Sith steal in absolutes.
And then he
Isn't
says,
that an absolute?
"Yeah." Well, he also says, "Do or do not try. There is no
There's
try."
definitely no logical contradictions in Star
Isn't
Wars.
that,
Don't even try.
Isn't that an absolute? I don't know. I mean, that sounds a lot like a Sith talking, Yoda. I mean, plus Mace Windu, he's definitely kind of Sithy,
See,
I mean,
I'm actually disappointed in the Jedi in the sense that the way this training, like if you look at, they're talking about, how you're not supposed to love. Like I'm very disappointed in the ethos behind that. It feels like
Yeah.
love should be
Is
a
good.
thing that
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
in there.
That's
seems-
why the only realistic to the real world Jedi that end up towards the end of the extended lore are the gray ones.
yeah,
The
Grey
ones that
Knights.
recognize that there are good
Oh,
and bad.
We're gonna get into Star Wars lore. Oh my gosh. I am not
Yeah, well-
prepared. I have not studied this.
Yeah, and to me, the abs, because going back to their, only Sith deal in absolutes. Well, the Jedi have some very absolute ideologies. There is no love. That's absolute, right?
Mhm.
Complete abandonment of self. That's absolute, right? Like complete passivity, almost absolute. Even though they say they're passive, but they're very active. But like
How many people did they kill? That's a
you're right.
lot.
You're right. Like they're cutting off
No,
arms.
we're going to get
Like,
into it. There is no emotion. There is peace. There is no ignorance. There is knowledge. There is no
Right.
passion. There is serenity.
What's funny, I forget. I think Tucker was watching something. I don't know if it was Rebels or I don't remember what it was. But one of the Jedi was struggling with, emotions, whatever.
Mhm.
And the Jedi Padawans, and the Jedi Master said, just don't feel or whatever, right? Like
Mhm.
something like that. To which I started singing, conceal, don't feel, conceal, don't feel. And then, it turns into let it go. And all of a sudden we're, back to Frozen. And that was really good in Frozen, right? Concealing, not feeling. It's a good idea to just stuff it all down. It's just incredible.
Yeah,
It's
that
like,
always ends up well. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I mean, so now you got all of these like Jedi that are repressive, like they've just repressed everything, and they're like bombs waiting to blow up. It's no wonder that Anakin went off and killed all the little ones. But yeah, so I think the ethos. I'm just like you are, Matt. Like I think the ethos is just a little bit disappointing. My
I feel
son,
like lacking, right? Like
yeah, it's lacking. Yeah,
it's almost like they didn't actually think this all through before they did it.
or they went with it. My son likes the Sith way more because I think they're easier for humans to comprehend. Like the Sith makes sense because at least you know where they stand on things.
I
Like
mean, you're
they're gonna
driven by
lie,
passion.
they're gonna cheat, they're gonna steal. Like you kind of understand it. Jedi, it's sort of like I have no clue what you're gonna do in this situation because sometimes you'll kill somebody and sometimes you'll just sit there and do nothing. But there's a lot of inconsistency in what's gonna happen. So, and I remember. I don't know what it was, but Tucker and I were listening to something, and they were talking about how many limbs were getting cut off. Like it's when the Jedi came to this planet and all these limbs were getting cut off, and the Jedi just couldn't understand. He's like, "What do you mean? What's the problem? They just get new robotic limbs. It's not a big deal. Everybody's still fine." Yeah, I think it was a parody or something, but it was
Yeah.
just sort of like, all the Jedi are just cutting off appendages left and right. Like it's like,
Well, they
uh,
were taught to disarm people.
right, you're disarming them. Well, here's the kicker. My
I'm
son,
sorry, I couldn't help it.
my son got me a Father's Day card that said, "Hands down, you're the best father," and it was a picture of Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker with both of their hands on the ground
Definitely.
because they were
It's a
cut
good one.
off. It is disarming. That's what it is.
Definitely.
How many dad jokes can we fit in here?
I'm sorry, I don't want to give you a hand for that one.
I'm just looking for a handout. That's all I'm looking for.
See, it won't do it when I want it to do it. Stupid
Of
thing.
course, it'll only do the thumbs up. Will it do the thumbs up? Good grief.
I totally have a thumb up. Oh my gosh. It is the
If
worst.
anybody tunes in at this point, they'll be like, "What am I looking at? These guys are
Like
nothing's
randomly
happening."
it will do it in meetings and I should
That's,
just turn it off.
that's the
but
perfect time for it.
That's just-
Balloons.
That's just your Mac,
it's
right? Like
usually
I've
when I'm
never ever seen that.
counting, I get up
Okay.
to a number and it all of a sudden it's like
Yay!
surprise.
I just realized on your back wall, you are clearly the most credentialed person I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, but these are like awful ones.
I have my pile on my dresser next to my bed,
I
and
don't
it
even
drives
have
my
blackout
wife
one.
nuts.
But that was just
Yeah,
in
you
the
gotta
teddy
get the
bench.
good ones. You gotta get the good
Those are
ones.
upstairs. Yeah.
Those are the ones that you keep safe.
I thought you were gonna say I was the safest because I have a fire.
I see what
extinguisher.
I
Oh, fire extinguisher.
What I
next to the
noticed is
firebox.
not only do you have the fire extinguisher, you also have the little arrow.
Yeah, but
that
it came
points
with the
to the
fire,
fire
extinguisher, and I had the perfect
Who-
spot for it.
Who in the
Yeah.
world puts those? I don't ever like. We have 3 fire
Then
extinguishers.
you're
in
not very safe, are you?
and I didn't put any of it. Matt's better than I am. I gotta be honest. Like, it's
I mean,
it's a
so
safe
you
room.
want to talk about something that's scary is if you think about this stove being too hot and all of a sudden you have a runaway situation, like that is
Yeah.
actually frightening of how hot that
Terrifying.
can be and
Yeah.
what would
Yeah.
happen.
Well, and or to have a chimney fire too. Like,
Well, that's
those-
my mother's an independent insurance agent, and like one of the big things that over the last I don't know how many years now it's been that like would live in a small town, like 600-700 people. Wood stoves are a thing, and people want to put wood stoves in their shops. Insurance companies will not cover a wood stove in a detached building anymore. Just straight up no.
Mhm.
So mine
It-
was really
like, it-
inexpensive. It was like $25 a year for me to have.
Well, in the
insurance
house,
in
but,
the house.
because you're probably on hand to. But it's whatever. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
it's just
but
this area.
when you
Detached
have-
buildings there.
When you have a guy in a detached garage, can you even imagine what he's putting in that thing? Like, he's not just putting wood in there.
That's true.
No,
Plastic.
he's putting everything. So my grandpa, I grew up. So they had a cabin up in the Rocky Mountains, and so obviously it got really, really cold. So he had a stove in his shop. And the way he made it is he just welded two 55-gallon drums together and then stuck a pipe, put it on its side and
Oh
stuck a
yeah,
pipe out the top.
55-gallon drum is about that thin.
Yeah, and
Pretty thin.
it was always an iffy situation when he lit it. And yes, the things that went into that, he put tires in them. Like, I mean, it
Ugh.
was, which was just normal. Like
Used
back then, that was
oil.
just, it was
Yeah.
just, yeah. Like it was like, that's what you do, it was totally bizarre. And then he just stopped using it randomly from, at some point. And I found out it's because he just about burnt the whole place down. And, they live so eventually their cabin was actually taken by a forest fire. So, not a good place to be having fires out of control.
Yeah.
So he stopped using it and everything like that. But
One of
they
the
had-
worst freaking
they
heat
had-
sources in like homes or shops in this area, corn burners. Like it's literally it's not good quality corn, but it's just dried corn grain, and they're designed to burn just corn. They stink. Like burnt
bet.
corn is just a pungent, nasty.
Well, do they get it hot
Oh.
enough? Like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
So
Chris, you're
even-
just not a
even when it
true
burns
Nebraskan.
clean, like, so my stove when it's
Oh, I see. Yeah. It's probably not burning hot enough because
Right.
otherwise you wouldn't.
Because
It's not completely combusting.
You got to get
Yeah.
if you get your temperature up to like, so part of this, right? This is single walled. I cannot move properly. Right,
down.
it's single walled so that it stays hot enough to
Mhm.
make sure
Right.
that all of the gas gets burned, right? And if
Mhm.
you don't burn it all, that's when you have actual smoke. So the only time my
Yep.
chimney makes smoke is when I first start it or when it's going out.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
Because smoke is incomplete combustion. That's what it is.
Yeah.
not liquid wood, Adam.
Right.
Gas.
Not.
I'm just
Well,
imagining-
it is kind of gaseous wood.
I'm just imagining it condensates up on your chimney and just you have chunks of wood dripping off of your,
Well, we do, right? Because actually, right, the part that's outside actually is always cooler, so cool that
Yep.
it condensates
It does.
whatever wasn't burnt, like some of it, right? So it actually accumulates and drips down.
Yep, and you
eventually
get a
as this
creosote.
black- Yeah,
Yep.
but that's
Yeah,
why
and those
like, you
creosote fires are dangerous too. Like
Well, that's
Yeah.
what
Uh-huh.
chimney fires are, right? Creosote.
yeah, that's what they
Mhm.
are.
That lights
Yeah.
on fire, and then it goes from being, 600 degrees to 1500
like-
degrees.
No, Adam. See, you're not burning the wood. You're melting it. It's just liquefying.
It's just liquefied. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just liquid
It's
wood.
just like an ice cube.
Yeah, it's a piece of cake. Like wood, we have discovered has a gaseous state, a liquid state, and a solid state. I mean, it
That's
just
why,
stands
like, if
to
you
reason.
burn it in a container, like, so
Right.
the liquefied and gasified air can't escape, or wood can't escape, and then you just condense it back down, and yeah,
that
the
means that
periodic
wood,
table of wood.
that means wood belongs on here somewhere, right? Oh no, you
Yeah.
can't tell because it's there because
Yeah,
I
I
got
can
the
kinda
Some
see it.
stinking blurry thing.
Yeah,
It's a
wood
periodic
wood
table of
wood,
elements.
wood,
That's what it is.
wood falls under C.
Under C. Yeah, that's this.
Yeah, but like I make sure like we sweep our chimney, but like we don't have, if you do it right, you're not building up.
Again,
so-
yeah, if it's fully combusting, then you're not getting the buildup. Yeah.
Yeah.
right, because
Which
you don't
is-
want to burn it too light. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like and so a lot of people will, so if you go in the wood community, right, like they're wood snobs.
The wood.
You are clearly not
community.
wearing enough
Oh,
flannel
My
to be considered
goodness.
part of the wood community.
This sounds like my kind of people.
I am wearing flannel, you just can't see it.
He's wearing flannel on the inside.
But like so a lot of them, right, are East Coast people that will say, well, you can't burn pine or you can't burn cedar in your stove. And
Well,
it's
you
like,
can. You just got to be ready for pops.
Are they advocating hardwoods only? Is that what they're talking about?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so they so here's what will happen, right? Like,
Combustible resin.
well, people will burn say oak or
Maple.
walnut or whatever, right?
Right.
And then they'll go and they'll stuff their, like, normally you can stuff, like, I can stuff my wood stove full of that and it won't get that hot.
Mhm.
But if you
Right.
do the same thing with pine,
It'll roar. Yeah, because it
it
combusts
is
so
because
quickly.
it's so much
Air.
less dense, it will burn so
Yep.
much hotter. So they'll throw pine in and then be like, "Oh, I had a chimney fire. Must be the pine." Well, guess what? All those people in the western United States, all they burn is pine.
It's
Mhm.
pine, right?
So, but these East Coast people who don't go and clean their chimneys because they're like, well,
Right.
I always burn X or Y, hardwoods, right? And I don't have chimney fires. And then somebody, down the street burned, some pine and had a
Mhm.
chimney fire.
Pine's bad.
Correlation
Yeah.
and causation are not the same thing.
What's funny to me is I feel like it's an abomination to burn maple and oak and walnut because I come from Kansas, and I don't know if you guys know this, but there's not a lot of trees in Kansas.
Not many in Nebraska either.
And if you have a nice tree like a maple tree or an oak tree or a walnut tree, you cut it down and then you saw it into pieces and then
And
you
you
dry
make
it and
stuff.
then you
See,
make stuff with it, right?
you clearly are not in the wood community. Like
Yeah,
if you
'cause
go
they
to
like
the
to-
dump, you will not find a maple tree. You will not find an ash tree, except for
Yeah.
the ones that are
No. Giant, yeah.
Mhm.
because all of the woodcutters, that's what they take, right? They leave
Yeah, because it's good
pine,
wood.
the cottonwood, and the cedar. Those are the three
Right, but
they
are those woodcutters cutting it for wood work or wood burn?
wood burning, 100%.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like it's
So
not.
this is, and this might ring true for people that have been around carpentry construction. I'm adverse to burning oak in a wood stove because I'm immediately reminded of a dull saw blade sawing an oak board and burning it up. Like it's immediately like that same, because it's burning oak smells the same. So
Yeah.
Nasty smell.
Well, see, my dad always burnt what he calls hedge, or what other people called Osage orange. People would plant
Yep.
in hedgerows.
Oh, that stuff is good wood though.
Oh yeah. Well, it's,
Oh my goodness.
It is. They use it for fence posts, right? But
And,
like,
and if you can get your hands on it, it's great for bows. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not.
So on the tips of your bow, so you make your bow out of a hickory or a walnut, but then at the ends, the knot where you put the actual string, you laminate Osage orange onto that because Osage orange is such a hard wood that it won't break down as you're constantly shooting your bow. So Osage orange laminations at the ends of your bow is like a super awesome thing. And if you can get Osage orange on your bow, it's like, and yes, the reason why I know about it is in Kansas, we used them for fence posts.
Yeah.
I hear
That's
you
generally where
makes
you
pretty
saw
good
it.
bows. You.
Yeah. You, as in me.
Wood puns.
Oh, now the dad jokes extend.
You walnutty guy. Sorry, that was a stretch. I'm sorry.
You started something when you started educating us, and now we're dad joke people.
It's a problem. You left your
Hey,
mark. Deal with it.
I was a wood snob before, and now I'll burn basically whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I'll burn I have some cottonwood, I have some pine. Most of them. The big thing is just letting it dry out, right? Making sure
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
wet. And that's mostly
You know-
because a wet wood will burn at a lower temperature, so then
hmm
more creosote.
It's way more smoke. Well, and ultimately, I think it's one of those things like you have to become a wood snob. I feel like you have to live in a woody area so you have the ability to be a snob. Out here, if you get a
but
tree,
no,
it's
I don't
tree.
think that's
You just
true.
take what you get.
So
Yeah.
if you the main people who are wood snobs are actually not the people who know about wood. They are the homeowner that is like, well, I need to have X. Like, so if you're selling firewood, right?
Right.
And they're going to burn it in their house, they're going to be like, well, I want a hardwood. And if you're not a wood snob, you'll say, well, you can burn like cottonwood. It works.
Yeah.
Like cottonwood is great in the spring and
Mhm.
Yeah.
and early fall, and the same with cedar and things like that.
Mhm.
So I think it's the general person or the person who is extreme and they're saying, I'm going to heat my house. I want to put as few logs in as possible. I need to have
So it's like
high
a
BTU.
Yule log all
Heat
year
density.
round.
Yeah.
It's like I want to find the perfect Yule log that'll burn all night.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like
well,
that's what
they'll
want.
have their there's a term for it, a like overnighter or something like that, where
Yeah.
you'll just put it in and the next morning it'll still be burning.
It'd still be burning. And that was the Yule log. So like the way that it was is if you put a Yule log in and it burned all night, you would have good luck for the next year.
Oh,
If it died overnight, then you would have bad luck or whatever. That's a Norse like history, which is
Well,
funny.
I mean,
because-
wow. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
no, go ahead. I was
What?
just gonna say. I mean, it's just
Go. No, you.
no you. No, I'm gonna finish. It's really interesting. Just I mean, how much of that has sort of pervaded into our Western society. Like the whole Yule idea and all the Yule celebrations is like what we have in the winter. Like I went to a German festival once and I'm like, it's just like normal Christmas decorations, but as Yule decorations. So anyway, sorry. Chris,
Well, I was just gonna say, it's not, rocket science. Big log in a hot stove at night, and you let minimum amount of oxygen to keep it going so it doesn't burn fast. And
Shh, no science. No science here.
Who needs science?
No, there's science, just not rocket science.
Yeah, I prefer rocket science.
I mean,
all right, you're gonna convince Elon Musk to launch the next rocket with wood gas?
If you liquefy the wood gas, you could make it rocket science.
What I wanted to say is Matt needs to get some SpaceX heat tiles to put on the back of his oven there, because
just have him make some aerogel.
Some aerogel. Actually, I just use some aerogel. Some find some silicates or something.
Well, you can. There's one where you can make something that's heat resistant because you burn it and it turns into carbon on the outside, and then thus it stops heat from transferring in.
Right. Actually, that's the way that a pipe, like a tobacco pipe, works. So if you get a brand new tobacco pipe, it burns your hands if you hold it. But the more you smoke it, it builds up a carbon deposit.
Yeah, it's like just a black film.
Yep. And then the carbon deposit actually prevents the heat from getting out into the wood, and it prevents the fire from burning the wood. But the other way you could do it is you have to smoke it a bunch, So it's interesting how that carbon cake is extremely important in some instances to actually maintaining that. So, well, I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
Are you guys all?
Seems to be that o'clock.
It seems to be that o'clock.
All right.
The doc talk was productive. We talked about so much computer stuff. It's ridiculous.
Just remember, toilet spiders.
Oh,
human Capri Sun and toilet spiders.
Human Capri Sun and toilet spiders. That's all we have. And wood gas, and
next
that we
time
breathe
I'll
what
have
our
to make
houses
an
are made
agenda
of.
so that we can. Let's cover.
It's gonna be like
we're
covering.
Things.
Right. We're going to cover tech things, then we end up with wood gas again,
Hey, I did a very brief overview of Log4Shell, so I'm proud.
Hey, you did. That's, we talked about operating systems momentarily. I mean, so, we had that for a second.
That's true.
Making progress.
Spyware delivery systems, yeah.
It's probably the classic case of this is what we do all day, every day, so we want to talk about other stuff kind of.
Well,
hey, while we're at it, you can tell me how to perform a HTTP request from within a Jupyter notebook to build another Jupyter notebook for an application. So
well, that sounds terrible.
That sounds like so much fun. I would like to log off immediately. But,
You're gonna think, I want to get to researching that right away, so I'm gonna log off right now.
I just gotta leave right now because I need to go look that up. It's amazing. So, all right, fellas, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you guys next
Thanks, guys.
week, same bat time, same bat place. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Tuesday at 2. Yeah, it's
Tuesdays
alliteration. That's the only way I remember it.
Tuesdays at 2 instead of Tuesdays with Maury. It's Tuesdays at 2. It's way less inspirational.